All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are doing 2023 preview and prediction for the West Virginia Mountaineers. Look at this coaching staff. Neil Brown's back for a fifth year, 22-25 record. Chad Scott, fifth year on the staff, first annual offensive coordinator. Shadon Brown, third year as the co-defensive coordinator. Biggest headline for the Mountaineers, Nick: two late season wins over rivals Oklahoma and Oklahoma State seem to have given Neil Brown one last breath. Magnificent wins there. 3-point win over Oklahoma. On the road against the Pokes, a 4-point victory. Before that, though, a few weeks prior, they lost to Texas Tech by 38 points, lost to 10 by TCU, and more than that to Iowa State. And then they seem to salvage their season here. 17-point loss was cushioned in between the victories there late in the year. It seems like those are the reasons why he's back, Nick. He shouldn't be one bit, I don't think. Do you think it's justified in the eyes of this administration?
I think he's going to lose his job this year. I don't think there's any way Neil Brown survives the end of this season. I can't believe that he kept his job. Certainly it's impressive beating Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. But you got to remember, Oklahoma did not have a very good year last year. This West Virginia team lacks any direction. They really seem to be going nowhere fast under Neil Brown. They continue to regress year after year, and it's really been a problem for this West Virginia team. They've struggled in recent decades. And Neil Brown just is not the coach, in my opinion, to lead this team. He's being paid $4.4 million to be below 500 as a career record. I just think that's not good enough for him. 5-7, 6-4, 6-7, 5-7, just poor numbers. 6-4 in the COVID year and winning the Liberty Bowl. But 6-7 last year, 2 years ago, 5-7 last year. Just the numbers continue to dwindle here. I think he's got to be out of a job soon. This just doesn't make a lot of sense for the program and the coach. It doesn't make a lot of sense at all for me. This team needs to find a way. They need to head in a better direction because they're really currently going in no direction in the Big 12. They're a bottom feeder in the Big 12, which is realigning and getting new pieces and new players. So if you have a new coach and in way the conference is with the new teams, they could certainly be a power player in this conference given the money and the investment they have at that university. It's a very solid sized university. I think they got to move on from him very soon.
Look at the offensive side of the ball. At first glance, these are some solid numbers. 49th in points per game, 57th in yards per contest. I feel like these are a little inflated, though, Nick. The first three weeks of the year put up 400-plus and 31 against Pittsburgh. Very resilient effort. That was very impressive against that defense. They lost to Kansas. They're playing from behind. They kind of beat up on that poor defense. And they played Towson, where they put up 620-plus. In some of the games, like Texas, 314 yards, 282 against Texas Tech, 200 against Iowa State, only 327 against Oklahoma State. So the offense certainly was really not that good, as I think these numbers would imply. Garrett Green needs to take over under center. He's always provided value as a tough-nosed runner. Really hasn't brought much to the table in terms of being an effective passer. Of course, JT Daniels departs for Rice, Nika Marchoy, and a true freshman is Sean Boyle, the only other option. So this quarterback room isn't exactly deep. I think they're certainly going to struggle in terms of trying to stretch the field this year. The wide receiver group is the biggest reason for that. I think they significantly downgrade. They lose their top four pass catchers. Some transferred out, some departed via the NFL draft. Cortez Braham, 6'2", 198, only caught a few balls last season, the top returning pass catcher. A few less for Jeremiah Aaron. They did pick up a few veterans in the portal, though. Devin Carter, sure-handed short area pass catcher. A good Z option at 6'3", 215. Big fan of what he did at NC State. They also grabbed E.J. Horton from Marshall. Didn't do much in his career. Jashawn Polk, he was a consistent 20-catch, 300-plus yard weapon out the slot for Kent State. Solid group overall, nothing too special. Nothing that will exactly elevate this group. I think 71st in passing yards per game. I see them being outside the top 90, top 100 this year, Nick. I don't have much faith in Garrett Green as a thrower. I think they're seriously going to have to focus on the ground game this year, which we'll get to in a second.
I think they're certainly going to have to rely on the ground game a lot. I don't think Garrett Green adds enough as a passer for this team. I think he's a decent quarterback, but he just doesn't really have enough for me. Losing JT Daniels is going to be a big loss, even though he didn't really have the most productive season. They're going to rely heavy on the ground game this year, which he was 52nd in the nation last year, 171 yards per game on the ground. It's not a bad number. They can certainly rise that number. They're going to have to. They're going to rely on the run game heavy this year.
Yeah, and that's going to be led by sophomore C.J. Donaldson, who arrived week one and just put on a show against Pittsburgh. A punishing contact runner. Good patience for such a young player. Great downhill. Has nice speed for his size of 6'2", 240. Nick, this is a guy that really came on in his 7 games, 526 yards, 8 touchdowns. He had 125. He sprung a big run there in the season opener against Pittsburgh. Ended up having 4 total 100-plus yard games. This is a great player for West Virginia. I think Justin Johnson certainly adds some value as well as a backup. I was a very big fan of this backfield coming into the season, and I didn't even talk about Donaldson. Tony Mathis ends up transferring out. I still think this is a strength of this football team. Nice duo here. And like we just said with Garrett Green, they're really going to have to focus on running the ball this year. He only had 45 touches for 276 yards, so he was an efficient runner. I think you're certainly going to see him, probably hit 100-plus touches this season in Green to kind of move away from this ailing passing attack. This is going to be a strength for this offense.
I think I agree. I think it's going to have to find a way to get a lot of handoffs here. Green, 276 yards on the ground, 5 scores for him. CJ Donaldson, pretty good runner. 7 games for Donaldson, 526 yards on the ground, 6 yards per carry, 8 scores for him. Also had 9 receptions, so he can certainly be involved in the pass game if need be. Jalen Anderson as well is sitting there in the backfield. Justin Johnson as well. He also had a decent number of touches. He had 98 carries for 430 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, 3 scores for him. Jalen Anderson, 275 yards on the ground, 7.9 yards per carry, 2 scores in 5 games. So it's certainly going to be a by-committee approach here. There's a lot of talented running backs here who have some awesome opportunities to step up and be involved in this offense.
And the biggest reason why I think they should certainly rely on the ground game is because this offensive line is a standout unit. Wyatt Millum, 6'6", 308, was a good left tackle. Didn't allow a sack, gave up 15 pressures, but anchored her down real well this past season. Tomas Rimac, 6'6", 312, also didn't allow a sack. He is going to be the left guard. Played half the snaps last year, so the numbers will certainly be a little skewed. Zach Frazier, 6'3", 306, figures to be one of the best centers in America. Was a sound run blocker. Very good pass blocker as well. Doug Nestor, 6'7", 320. He's been a very suitable interior offensive lineman for them. He appears to be kicking out the right tackle. Brandon Yates really struggled last season. Figures to be the right guard, 6'4", 308. Size and skill is a plus for this offensive line. One of the nation's better units, Nick, which is crazy to say considering the rest of this offense is pretty, mid.
It is a good unit, certainly. There's a lot of size and skill with this offensive line. These guys are big people movers who add a lot to this team. Wyatt Mullum's fantastic, 6'6", 308, good left tackle, great there in pass blocking. I like him a lot. Thomas Rymick, a good player as well at left guard. That left side, Molman and Rymick is fantastic. Zach Frazier is a good center, one of the best in the nation. Very good in pass blocking, very good all around. Doug Nestor is fantastic, 6'7", 320. Love the side there on the interior, but might be moving out to the right tackle. I think that's a bit of a poor move there. I think Nestor should stay on the interior, but certainly can move him around. Brandon Yates is a good player. He could be in there at right guard. This is a very good unit, one of the better in the Big 12, one of the better in the nation. Very sizable unit here.
C+ for me, just because the downfield passing game figures to be even worse. I think it's going to be a pretty one-dimensional unit, which I think can certainly play to their strengths because obviously this defense is going to need some help. This offensive line, though, the running game, I think it could be pretty solid. That might do wonders for them, Nick. What's your opinion on what this offense can do? And if they can't run the ball, though, it could be, bad news bears for them.
This is a C+ offense. They got to be able to run the ball. They have to pound and ground here because that's the only way they're going to be able to get anything out of this offense. 30 points per game this past season was not a bad number, certainly a little bit inflated, like you said earlier, and talking about the offense, but this is a team that has a good running back core. The wide receiving room is very shallow. The offensive line's fantastic, and Garrett Green leaves a lot of question marks at quarterback. This is a C+ unit, just a very mid unit, one of the more mid units in the country.
Look at the defensive side of the ball, 116th nationally points per game allowed. Lose 14 players in the portal. They add 8, though. Return 5 starters. And the top 3 tacklers are back. But they do lose 2 great players on the D-line, Dante Stills and Jordan Jefferson, who are the top tackle for loss guy. Sean Martin, he's going to be the leader for this unit. Really good run defender at 6'5", 280. Showcased good run-stopping skills. Taras Simmons, the rising sophomore, only saw 4 games last year. Jared Bartlett, a veteran who's been marginally productive in the past, has yet to really emerge as a strong option, though. The ceiling seems capped, but he is a leader nonetheless with his experience. Tyron Bradley from Albemarle Christian wasn't above average player. 2 key cogs to be placed on the interior, though, in Jefferson and Stills is going to be tough. Mike Lockhart, 6'4", 317. Didn't really provide much but in terms of run stopping, but he is a veteran. Edward Vesterine from Finland was a good tackler, but certainly left a lot on the table in terms of run stopping as well. 6'3", 300. Hamon Russell didn't see the field as a redshirt freshman. And then Jalen Thornton, only a few snaps himself. This seems like a trending downwards interior defensive line. I think the edge is certainly suitable, led by Sean Martin, Nick, but I don't expect too much from this run defense this season. I think they'll take a step back, as will this entire defensive line.
I like Sean Martin, good player, 34 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Certainly trending in the wrong direction, though, I agree. Edward Vesterine, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 10 total tackles for him. Decent numbers. Taras Simmons is a true freshman. He had limited snaps, 8 total tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. So decent numbers for limited appearances. Mike Lockhart at nose tackle. Good big player there, 13 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss for him. Need to see his numbers increase. Overall, I think they have good present on the edge. I think they have a solid unit on the edge. Jalen Thornton as well as another player who's got some decent potential, but I think they're going to struggle against the run. I like their sack production potential, certainly, but I feel like they're going to struggle against the run, which could be a downfall.
In the middle of this defense, they do return top tackle Lee Kabagba. He was a really good box player, strong tackler, did good work versus the run. Was flat out poor in coverage, though. Lee Dixon saw nearly 200 snaps. Really wasn't all that good. Trey Latham was quite impressive in his few games. Expect him to see the field more this fall. Jero Favaris only saw 14 snaps. Tyreek Austin Cave, the transfer from last season, didn't get on the field at all. Solid middle of the defense, I think, overall. I think they're pretty happy with the experience. Playmaking certainly needs to tick up a bit, though. Good graces for them, though. Kabaga is back. If they didn't have him, they'd be in a world of trouble, Nick.
Lee Kabagba is always great to return your top tackler. He was your top tackler by almost 30 tackles, 92 total tackles for him, 5.5 tackles lost, 3.5 sacks. Kabagba is a good player in the middle of the defense, a good leader, natural-born hitter. I like him a lot. Lance Dixon, good player to return as well. Solid player, 22 total tackles for him. But overall, this is a unit that's got some shallow depth. They really don't have a lot out of their redshirt freshman. Would like to step up and be involved. This is a unit that's lacking that depth, but Kabagba is a very talented player to return as well. I like to see him continue to take that step forward. 100 total tackles for him and above is certainly achievable.
Now you look at the secondary. The cornerback department features Andrew Wilson-Lamp. He was an above average player in coverage, only 6 games though. Malachi Ruffin was more than admirable versus the run. Also needs some boost in coverage.